14-year-old Ethan Marshall had just moved to a quiet countryside village in North Yorkshire with his mother. They had come to live in his late grandfather's old stone cottage, a moss-covered roof, creaky wooden floors, and air that felt older than time. The first night was cold. Rain gently tapped against the attic window, and a chilly wind howled softly through the cracks in the walls. The cottage was silent. Too silent. Ethan lay in bed under a thick blanket, trying to sleep. But around 1:17 a.m., he suddenly heard it. Footsteps. Soft. Deliberate. Coming from above. His heart skipped a beat. He slowly sat up and looked toward the ceiling. There was an attic right above his room, but his mother had told him it had been locked for years. No one ever went up there. Yet the footsteps continued. Tap, tap, tap. Grabbing his phone and switching on the flashlight, Ethan quietly climbed this narrow staircase to the attic. Each step creaked under his weight. The attic door was slightly open. He hesitated for a moment, then pushed it gently with 2 fingers. Inside was darkness, cold, still. Then he saw it. A tall figure wrapped in a long white sheet, standing, motionless near the far wall. Its back was to him, until it slowly turned around. Ethan froze. Its eyes were completely black. No whites, no pupils, just endless, empty darkness. His breath caught in his throat. His hand trembled. Who are you?" he whispered. The figure didn't answer. It simply stared. Then, without warning, it lunged forward with terrifying speed, silently like a gust of wind. Ethan screamed and stumbled back, crashing down the stairs. His phone flew out of his hand and slid across the floor. He scrambled to his feet, heart pounding in his ears. The attic door slammed shut above him with a deafening bang. He didn't dare look back. The next morning, Ethan woke up late. His body felt heavy, his mind foggy. The memory of the dark figure in the attic still clung to him like cold mist. On his phone, there was a short, blurry video. Nothing clear, just a flickering shadow near the attic wall. He didn't tell his mom. She had already gone into the village for groceries. The house was eerily quiet. Every creak and whisper of wind felt sharper now. As Ethan walked down the hallway, he suddenly noticed something he hadn't seen before. A door at the very end. It looked old, much older than the rest. Thick wooden planks nailed across it and a small, rusty metal sign hanging crookedly. "Do not enter. Where breath ends, silence begins." Ethan swallowed hard. "It's just an old room," he muttered to himself. "It's just a story." He slowly reached out and pushed the door. It creaked open with a long, groaning sound. Darkness. Thick, stale air. The scent of damp wood and something rotten. Ethan switched on his phone's flashlight. Inside, the floor was covered in dust, old torn papers, and a broken brass lamp. But what truly froze him was the mirror in the center of the room. It was large, oval-shaped, and ancient. The glass was darkened and cracked at the corners. And when Ethan pointed the flashlight at it, he saw himself. But his reflection's eyes were black. He blinked, rubbed his eyes, looked again. Now the reflection was smiling, but Ethan's face was completely still. Then, slowly, the reflection lifted its finger and began writing on the mirror from the inside. You opened the door. Now it's your turn to enter. Ethan stumbled back, his chest tight. His brain screamed run, but his legs refused to move. The reflection pointed to its own eye, and suddenly the mirror tipped forward and crashed to the floor. But there was no shattering sound. Instead, a cold wind swept through the room. The symbols scratched on the walls began to glow red. Ethan turned and ran to the door, but it slammed shut right in front of him. He was locked inside. Behind him, the mirror began to ripple, as if something inside it was trying to come out. The door slammed shut behind Ethan. He yanked at it desperately, but it felt as solid as stone. The air inside the room grew heavier with each breath he took. The mirror before him began to darken, its surface rippling like water disturbed by a dropped stone. Suddenly, a faint shimmer appeared on the glass, and a soft whisper echoed, "Come, you've been called." Ethan tried to step back, but his feet seemed glued to the floor. His body grew numb, his vision blurred, and then everything went black. When he opened his eyes again, he was still in the room, but everything had changed. The walls were now made of black stone. Above him, the sky was a swirl of deep reds and smoky blacks, like fire and ash mixed in eternal twilight. Around him stood children, silent, still, and all of them identical to Ethan. Same clothes, same shoes, same face. But their eyes burned with an unnatural red glow. One boy in the center stepped forward slowly. "Have you come?" he said coldly. "We all once opened the door, just like you." Ethan mustered courage to ask, "Where am I? What is this place?" The boy smiled as if holding a secret centuries old. "This place is the other side of the mirror, where time stops and runs at once, where children live but never return." The other children began to circle around him. In their hands were rusted toys, but each toy seemed more like a weapon. One held a stuffed rabbit with pin eyes. Another gripped a wooden horse with a blade hidden inside. A tiny girl stepped close and whispered, "You will become like us. You opened the door, and now your place is here." Ethan tried to run, but there was only darkness beneath his feet. Whispers surrounded him. "The mirror has swallowed you. You are now a picture, not a person." Suddenly, a light flickered. His phone, in his pocket, began to glow. On its screen appeared words. "One door remains." Ethan lifted his head. Far ahead, a faint light shimmered, an opportunity. But shadows moved between him and that light. The light was far ahead. Between Ethan and the glow were hundreds of shadows, crawling, whispering, moving. It felt like a nightmare he couldn't wake from. But again, the words flashed on his phone screen. One door remains. Ethan whispered to himself, "If there's a way out, I have to find it." He stepped forward, weaving through the shadows. From each shadow came a child's voice. "Mom, I want to go home. Dad, I didn't close the door. I can't sleep." His heart ached. These were the children who had been trapped in the mirror's spell, who had made the same mistake and were now lost forever. At last, through the mist, Ethan saw it. A stone door. No handle, no lock, no mark. Just a single word glowing faintly. Exit. As he neared, two giant shadows emerged on either side, huge figures with glowing eyes. One shadow said, "This door does not open for everyone." The other added softly, "You may leave, but only if you give up one truth from your past." Ethan's breath caught. "What do you mean?" The first shadow said, "You can return, but you must leave behind a piece of who you were, something that belonged to you, but no longer will." Tears welled in Ethan's eyes. Could he leave behind his memories, his mother's voice, his childhood laughter, his father's last embrace, his first best friend? He sat down slowly, whispering, "I leave behind my name." The shadows stepped back silently. The door creaked open, light flooding the space. Ethan closed his eyes and stepped through the glow. Suddenly, he felt pulled, like falling through empty space. When he opened his eyes again, he was back in his bed. Morning light streamed through the window, his mother's voice calling downstairs. Everything seemed normal. But the mirror still hung on the wall, and when Ethan looked into it, his reflection smiled, then winked. Ethan slowly got out of bed. Morning light filled the room, but there was still an unnerving silence in the air. A silence that only comes when something is terribly wrong, yet unseen. From downstairs came his mother's cheerful voice. "Ethan, breakfast is ready. Hurry up or you'll be late for school." A faint smile crossed Ethan's lips. Maybe it was all just a nightmare. But when he glanced toward the mirror on the wall, a chill ran down his spine. The mirror was still there, and inside it stood his reflection, smiling softly. Ethan quickly looked away, heart pounding. As he reached for the door, his eyes caught a strange new word written on the wall, something that hadn't been there before. Reflection replaced. He went downstairs. His mother was happily setting the table. "Did you sleep well?" she asked. Ethan answered quietly, "Yeah, I feel better." She paused for a moment, then said, "Ethan, are your eyes okay? They look different somehow." Ethan forced a smile, cold and distant. He picked up his spoon and started eating. But in his eyes, there was nothing. No sparkle, no light. Just darkness. That night, after his mother turned off the kitchen lights and went to bed, she thought she saw two Ethans standing in the room, one sitting on the bed, the other inside the mirror. Both turned toward her at the same time. Then the mirror slowly darkened and swallowed all the light. The next morning, Ethan was gone. No mirror, no sign. Only a note left behind. I came back, but I didn't come alone. The quiet streets of Yorkshire remain still, but once the mirror's door opens, it never fully closes again. Sometimes, late at night, a child's whisper can be heard through old windows. "Let me out.